Hello, my name is Nathan Taylor, otherwise known as Sockmatician, and this is a tutorial to accompany the Sockmatician's Double Knitted Brioche ebook. This particular video looks at how to transition horizontally, as in when you're working across a row, between standard double knitted brioche and inverted double knitted brioche. Inverted double knitted brioche just means we're working with the colours switched around. As you can see here on this swatch, the lower half is worked in standard mode, so my knit stitches on this side of the yarn are the brown coloured ones, and then at this point here I transitioned to working in inverted mode, so the blue stitches are my knit stitches and the columns continue from brown straight into blue, unlike in syncopated brioche where knit stitches become purl stitches but remain the same colour. As you can see as well, my section of inverted double knitted brioche doesn't reach right to the edges. I've got 3 columns here, including my slip stitch edge here, of standard, and then I've got pairs of inverted mode across the center there before transitioning back. So I'm going to show you how to work across the row, transitioning horizontally from standard mode double knitted brioche into inverted mode double knitted brioche, and then from inverted mode double knitted brioche back into standard mode. Working along the row then, as always, I would have my knit coloured yarn at the back of the work going over the top of the right needle and my pearl coloured yarn in front, and I'm at the point where I've got 1 pair of standard mode double knitted brioche stitches left to work. So let me show you how that works. Knit with my knit coloured yarn, take my pearl coloured yarn to the back of the work over the right needle and bring it to the front, coming between the 2 needles, then bring my knit coloured yarn to the front, coming between the 2 needles, and then I'm going to purl into the next stitch with its yarn over with my pearl coloured yarn, slip that off the needle there. Now, because I'm transitioning at the same point in every row in this section, always between these 2 columns here, actually between the pearl column on the back and this column here on the front, you can see I've got this rather attractive ladder of little twists. It's very nice here. After the first row of transition, I have to be really careful when approaching this point, because can you see this is the purl stitch, which is the last stitch of the final pair of standard mode. It's the same colour as the first knit stitch of inverted mode, and they're both sitting under the same shared yarn over. So when I'm working into that purl stitch, I need to be very careful to slip just the stitch off the needle and keep the yarn over in place on the left needle so that I can then work it together with that next stitch. On the first row of any new transition point, that's not an issue, and you can just work the stitch and slip off as normal. If you're anything like me and you forget every single time, then you will have slipped that yarn over off. Don't worry, you can always take the left needle and just scoop it back up, going in from the front to the back. Let me show you that again, because that can be a little bit fiddly. So I'm just coming to the second stitch of my final pair of standard mode, and I'm going to purl that with the shared yarn over with my pearl coloured yarn, and when I slip that stitch off, I make sure I keep the knit coloured yarn over in place on the left needle. So this is the transition point then. This is the same whether it's the first row or subsequent rows. All you need to do, I've taken my knit coloured yarn to the back of the work, of course, and my pearl coloured yarn is still at the front. All you need to do to transition horizontally from standard mode to inverted mode is you take the pearl coloured yarn to the back of the work, going between the 2 needles. That's it. Goes from there to there. I'm now in inverted mode. Both of my yarns are at the back of the work. So then I'm going to work across this inverted section exactly as the same as ordinary inverted mode, which has already been covered in a previous video. So I knit with my pearl coloured yarn, I bring both yarns to the front of the work, I take my pearl coloured yarn to the back, I purl with my knit coloured yarn, that's the switch over, we're now knitting with pearl coloured yarn and purling with our knit coloured yarn, maintaining that blue yarn over the top of that stitch as I slip it off the needle, and then I take my knit coloured yarn to the back. Don't worry if that's gone by a little bit quickly, that's all covered in the working in inverted mode video as part of this series. I'm just going to whiz through to the other end of this section then, so that I can show you how to transition back from inverted mode to standard mode. As you can see, working in inverted mode is not hard at all. You get quite a nice flow. And it can be very smooth and very fast indeed. So here I'm coming to the end of the inverted mode section. got one pair left to work, and you see here's one blue column of knit stitches followed by one brown column of knit stitches, although there is a column of brown purl stitches on the back. So I'm going to work that last pair exactly as normal. Knit with my pearl coloured yarn, both yarns to the front, pearl coloured yarn to the back over the right needle, purl with my knit coloured yarn, but I'm in the same position because I've got multiple transitions stacked up on top of each other here. So once again, I've got two of the same coloured stitches next to each other sitting under one shared yarn over. So I'm going to have to be very careful as I purl into that one. Once again, that as I slip the stitch off the needle, I keep the yarn over, the shared yarn over, in place. And again, if it slips off, it's not a major issue. You can always just duck under with your left needle going in from front to back. So that's where we are at the moment, and I finish off with my knit coloured yarn being taken to the back of the work over the right needle. Both of my yarns are at the back of the work, and that's always going to be the case after finishing an inverted pair of stitches. To transition back then, so I can work in standard mode from here on in, I bring the knit coloured yarn to the front of the work coming over the top of the right needle, and I take it to the back of the work going between the two needles like that. It's essentially just a reverse yarn over like that. Now I'm ready to continue working in standard mode, but the first pair after a transition from inverted mode is always worked a little bit differently. My yarns will be in this position, having just done the transition, and this is how I work that first pair. Using my knit coloured yarn, I knit the knit stitch with its yarn over. I bring both yarns to the front of the work, coming between the two needles. Then using my pearl coloured yarn, I purl the next stitch with its yarn over. I take my knit coloured yarn to the back of the work, going over the right needle. Now both of my yarns are in the right positions, ready to continue working in standard mode, but let me show you that one more time from the transition into that first pair so you can see how it all comes together. Here I am then again at the final pair of stitches before the transition. So I'm going to knit with my pearl coloured yarn, bring both yarns to the front of the work, take my pearl coloured yarn to the back of the work going over the top of the right needle, purl with my knit coloured yarn, making sure I don't lose that yarn over, the shared yarn over, as I complete the stitch. Now I do the transition, so I bring my knit coloured yarn to the front of the work over the top of the right needle and to the back between the two needles, and now we're going to work this first pair, which is done slightly differently. I'm going to knit with my knit coloured yarn, bring both yarns to the front of the work, purl with my pearl coloured yarn, and take my knit coloured yarn to the back. And now I can continue in standard mode doing the knit with the knit coloured yarn, the yarn maneuvers, and the purl with the pearl coloured yarn, and the knit coloured yarn goes to the back exactly as you already know how. And that's how to transition horizontally between standard double knitted brioche and inverted double knitted brioche.